Smith Show on Indie Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indie Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indie Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indie Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X _ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indies Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And, of course, you can listen on 1430 a.m. if you're in the Indianapolis area. Big day today for the Indianapolis Colts. We're going to have Blaiden Kirk on at 11:20 to talk about the Colts and a little bit about this joint practice against the Ravens today. We'll probably talk about the AFC South as a whole as well. So the Colts, they're currently in Baltimore practicing against a team in the Baltimore Ravens that hope to be hoisting a Lombardi trophy this season. That is what that team expects to do. This is great competition for the Indianapolis Colts to be able to sit back and evaluate how their roster compares to one of, if not the best roster in the NFL. I mean, the Ravens have everything. They got pass rushers, good linebackers, great players in the secondary. And then you look at the offense, and it's a really good offensive line. And, of course, there's Lamar Jackson, one of the he's either the second, third, or fourth best quarterback in the NFL. And they got Zay Flowers at receiver. Like there's just so much talent on that Ravens roster. And the Colts are going to have an opportunity to go up head-to-head. We're going to learn a lot about Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson today, hopefully. And we're going to get to all that. But I want to start with something that I think is a little more important. Every good NFL team has three things. Two of them really easy to figure out. They have a good quarterback, and they have a good head coach. But what's the third thing? Is it a good defense? Is it an edge rusher? Is it a lockdown corner? No. It's an identity. Every good team in the NFL has an identity. The Colts don't have one. What is the identity of the Colts? Couldn't tell you. But I watched the Lions play, and you can immediately tell that they are very tough and they're very aggressive, right? Like they're going to go for it on fourth down. I think the Washington Commanders are very similar, right? They're a little flashier with Jaden Daniels playing quarterback as opposed to Jared Goff. But the roots of Washington is they're tough and they're very aggressive. They went for it on fourth down all the time, and they converted 87% of them. That's kind of nuts. The Kansas City Chiefs, they're savvy and they're clutch. The Rams are very innovative offensively. The Bills, very physical. The Steelers, consistent and physical. The Ravens are just fast. Like when I look at the Ravens, I'm like, fast. Their receivers are fast. Their linebackers are fast. Their secondary is fast. Their quarterback is fast, right? They're fast. And they're also very physical, right, with the way that they run the football with Derrick Henry in the backfield. The Eagles, they are physical in the trenches, to be a little more specific with them. The tush push. Jalen Carter at defensive tackle is the best player on that defense, and so on. What is the identity of the Colts? What is it? What has their identity been under Shane Steichen? What's their identity been under Chris Ballard for, the entire time that he's been here? We're average at everything. We go 8-9. We like Band-Aids at quarterback. We don't do anything until we absolutely have to. That's what the Colts identity has been under Chris Ballard. We don't draft a quarterback until we absolutely have to. We don't go into free agency to acquire good players until in Chris Ballard's case, until he absolutely has to in order to help save his job. That has been the identity of the Colts. And I think the frustrating thing about this is when you look at the Colts and you listen to what Chris Ballard says and you look at this roster, the Colts should have an identity. They should. It is clear as day what their identity should be, and it sadly doesn't line up with what Shane Steichen wants it to be. I think that Shane Steichen wants to push the football down the field. He wants a high-powered offense, explosive plays. We're ripping the ball down the seam. It's Alec Pierce making plays over the top. A little bit of Tyler Warren there in the middle, picking up chunk yards and all that kind of stuff. I think that is what Shane Steichen wants the offense to be, because that's what it was when he was in Los Angeles coaching the Chargers. When he was the offensive coordinator with Philly, they pushed the ball down the field quite a bit, way more than what Philly did last year. But it worked there. You know why? Because Jalen Hurts was your quarterback, and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith were your starting receivers, and you had really good tight ends there as well. And then you look at the Colts, and it's like, yeah, they just don't have the right personnel to be everything that Shane Steichen wants them to be, and that is a high-powered, explosive offense. The Colts just simply aren't good enough at quarterback. I didn't have to tell you that, though. You already knew. You know, Anthony Richardson, does he have the talent and the physical capabilities to do what Shane Steichen wants the offense to look like? Absolutely, he does. Does Daniel Jones? I don't think he does. I don't think he does. So they aren't good enough at quarterback to consistently push the ball down the field like Shane Steichen wants them to. They're not good enough at wide receiver either. Like Michael Pittman Jr., good player, not a great one. Josh Downs, good player, not a great one. Alec Pierce does one thing well. Like they don't have the proper personnel to do what Shane Steichen wants to do. And this, to me, if you wanted to critique Shane Steichen, if you want to rip him, like this is the thing. Trying to create an explosive offense, built off of these big chunk plays and those things. Trying to create an explosive offense with this personnel is like me trying to put on my 2-year-old nephew's shoes. It's just not going to work. I'm not getting my foot in that little kid's shoe. It's not going to happen. What the Colts' identity should be, what their offense should look like, is pretty similar to what the Tennessee Titans looked like when Ryan Tannehill was their quarterback and Derrick Henry was playing running back. Run the ball. Shorten the game. Trust the defense a little bit more. And you're not really trusting the defense that much more if you're running the football, trying to shorten the game. That is what Indianapolis Colts football should look like right now. The Colts should be a physical, run-first team. That should be their identity. Chris Ballard, what does he talk about more than anything else? You're like, oh, competition. No, that only started this year. I'm talking about over the 9 years that he's been here. What does Chris Ballard preach and talk about more than anything else? He talks about the importance of offensive line play and defensive line play. Yet for some reason, over the last 9 years, that hasn't been the identity of this Colts team. And it 1,000% should be. Jonathan Taylor is one of the best running backs in the NFL. He is. He's probably one of the 5 or 6 best running backs in the league. What they should do is they should line it up and they should run the football behind Quentin Nelson, one of the best offensive guards in the NFL, an offensive guard that you deemed so great that you used the 6th overall pick on him. So you should run the football behind him, and you should run the football behind Bernard Raymond, the guy that you just gave the 4-year, $100 million extension to. Those are your 3 best players on offense. Bernard Raymond, Quentin Nelson, Jonathan Taylor, not in that order. Run the football behind those guys. They seem to really like Tanner Bortolini. I don't get it. I felt like the more he played last year, the worse he got. But if you believe in him, run the football. Line it up and let's go. They should run the ball behind Quentin Nelson and Bernard Raymond somewhere between 15 to 20 times a game. You have a legitimate running back room now. Last year, you didn't. Okay, Jonathan Taylor, Trey Sermon, and Tyler Goodson is not a real running back room. It's just not. But Jonathan Taylor and Tyler Goodson and DJ Giddens and Khalil Herbert, that is a real running back room. Those are 4 guys. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor's your bell cow. He should run the football, 20-something times a game, and then you can kind of sprinkle the other guys in there a little bit. That should be who this team is. They should be a physical, run-first football team because the three best players on this offense are built to help you do that. And your identity should revolve around your best players. The Colts had 11 games last year where they threw the football 28 times or more. That's too many. That's also not really a fair stat because obviously if you lose, 9 games and you're down late and obviously like you're going to throw the ball more. But either way, that's too many. When you have Joe Flacco and second-year Anthony Richardson throwing the football, like come on, like you've got to run the football more. That should be the identity of this team. Okay, and here's the other thing, which further enforces this idea that the Colts should be a run-first, downhill, physical type of football team. Whether it's Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson playing quarterback, they can both run. And also, neither one of them should throw the football 28 times in a game this season. I understand that it's going to happen once or twice because they're probably going to lose some games and they're going to be down. But they should run the football. Both quarterbacks can run. The year that Daniel Jones went 9-6-1 and kind of looked like a starting quarterback and made the playoffs and won a playoff game on the road in Minnesota. That was the year that he just ran the ball a whole bunch and he actually stayed healthy. Anthony Richardson, the arm strength's great. Seems like the accuracy and those things are improving. But you didn't take Anthony Richardson 4th overall just because of his ability to throw the football. You took him 4th overall because he's a big, strong, physical dude who can run. So both quarterbacks can run. You have one of the 5 or 6, or you have either the 5th or 6th running back, 5th or 6th best running back in the NFL with Jonathan Taylor behind an offensive line that should be able to run block, especially the left side, running it behind, Quentin Nelson and Bernard Raymond. If you want to run it behind Gonsalves a little bit too, wouldn't mind it, right? They seem to like him in the camp that he's having. That should be the identity. A run-first, physical offense that runs it mainly behind Quentin Nelson and Bernard Raymond. That is what the offense should look like. Defensively, I have no idea what their identity should be based on the personnel. What I would like for it to be is fast and physical. I don't think they're very fast. Zaire Franklin, not exactly running dudes down. The other linebackers, we don't really know anything about them. Right? Physicality, though, that would be nice. You probably wouldn't have missed. You probably wouldn't have missed as many tackles as they did last year if they were a little more physical. What I think the identity is going to be, though, for this Colts defense is going to be bend but don't break, while hoping that Javarius Ward or Cam Bynum or Kenny Moore or Leatu Latu find a way to make a big play. Occasionally. Maybe the genius of Lou Anarumo in his first year as the defensive coordinator of the Colts. Maybe his genius, the mad scientist, as they call Lou Anarumo. Maybe he steals them a couple possessions. Right? But the interesting thing that I find is when you look at the best teams in the NFL, their identity relates to being tough or physical in one way or another. The Lions are incredibly physical and incredibly tough. I don't think anyone questions that aspect about the Lions. The Chiefs, very savvy and clutch. To me, that is mentally being tough, being able to come up in big spots time and time again. The Rams are really innovative on offense. And usually when people say that, they just immediately talk about their ability to throw the football around and trick plays and all these things. That's cool. But you know what the Rams do really well? Run the football. They're physical. The Bills, incredibly physical. When Matt Milano hits a dude, you feel it at home, sitting on your couch, even though they're playing the game in freaking Buffalo. When Josh Allen, lowers his head at the goal line, he's a big physical quarterback. The Steelers are the definition of tough and physical, have been for their entire history. The Ravens, yes, they are incredibly fast on both sides of the ball. But you know what else they are? Really freaking physical. The Eagles, that's one of the most physical and tough teams in the NFL. And teams like the Miami Dolphins, who are fun and fast, right? And they're, throwing the ball to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And, it's like, oh, look at all the speed. And, oh, it's so much fun. Like, that doesn't win games. There is no toughness in the identity of the Miami Dolphins. It's just fast. That's all that it is. They don't run the ball well. Their defense isn't flying around, hat on a hat, crushing dudes. Like that's not who they are. They are just fast. That's it. There is no run game. And if the Colts, because we've heard Shane Steichen talk about this, if they want to be tougher and more physical and all those things, then they need to adopt the identity of running the football. You want to be physical? You want to be tough? Line it up. Look across the line of scrimmage and say, hey, we're going to take this football and we're going to run it down your throat. And we're going to get behind big old Quentin Nelson, who seems to be all pro like every year. And we're going to get behind our big left tackle, who we're paying a whole bunch of money now. And we're just going to run it right at you. Oh, by the way, our 240-pound quarterback, yeah, he can carry it too. That needs to be the identity. Run first. Because if you do that, you're going to be tougher and naturally more physical. Teams that run the football more tend to be more physical and tougher football teams. And I don't think that we've seen that from the Colts these past 3 years. Or excuse me, the past 2 years under Shane Steichen. Hopefully we can see a little bit of a shift in that this season. Now, they can show it today. They're in Baltimore. Joint practice against the Baltimore Ravens is going on. I believe it's going on right now. I really don't know what time they were supposed to start, but as the updates pour in, I promise you, I've got them for you. I do. So I do want to talk a little bit about what we hope to see today. I know some people are hoping for a good day from Anthony Richardson. I know there's some haters out there hoping he has a bad day. Same goes for Daniel Jones. There's people hoping he has a good day, and there's people hoping that he has a bad day. I don't really care. I don't. I hope they both play well. I genuinely hope that. But there's one thing that I hope for above both of them playing well. And I'll tell you what that is when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
It's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X__ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy's Sports Ticket app. Hopefully you're having a nice start to your week. And I know I am. Like, football's like, it's like I can taste it. It's so close. Like, we have a real preseason game, and I call it a real preseason game. By the way, Blaiden Kirk is going to join the show coming up here in about an hour. And we're going to talk a little bit more just kind of Colts and the AFC South in general, as the Colts are currently in good old Baltimore today doing a joint practice against the Baltimore Ravens. So, we're so close. We're going to get a real look at the Colts today as they take on what's supposed to be a really, really good Ravens team this season. Now, Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones. Obviously, we're in the quarterback competition. That is the thing that we are the most concerned about. Zach Pirles, he's boots on the ground there in Baltimore. He's going to join the show tomorrow at 10:20, and he's going to kind of report on everything that he saw from the Colts. Zach Hicks is there as well. He's going to come on Friday to kind of give us a nice little debriefing as well. I'm sure we'll talk about the preseason game too. But today, what do I want to hear about Anthony Richardson? What are the things that are going to make me go, all right, I feel good about him? Anthony Richardson is going to make mistakes today. It is absolutely going to happen because this is a good Ravens defense, right? Like that Ravens defense has a lot of really good players at every single level. If you go over to ESPN.com, they have this rankings where they, kind of like they just rank the best rosters in the NFL, and they have the Ravens one over like the Eagles, and the Eagles are loaded, right? And like you look at the defense, and they got Matabuke, an excellent pass rusher. Kyle Van Noy is still an impactful player. Roquan Smith is one of the better inside linebackers in the NFL. Nate Wiggins, second-year corner out of Clemson, he can really play. Kyle Hamilton, it's probably the best safety in the league. Malachi Starks is, he was the best safety in this draft. Jair Alexander was the best corner for the Green Bay Packers for what feels like the past forever. And now he's there in Baltimore. And Marlon Humphrey, a guy who's been an impactful player in the league for a long time. Guess what? Yeah, he's still there. He's playing that nickelback position. So this is a really good Ravens defense, especially the secondary. And so Anthony Richardson is going to struggle at different points today. Because when you're playing against a defense like this, and it's your first like real live action, good luck. The thing that I want to hear, though, and I don't think that anyone will just be able to like report this. I think we'll be able to tell by the mistakes that Anthony Richardson makes today. I just want to hear that he didn't get sped up. I just want to hear that he stayed within himself and that he consistently found, guys open underneath, and he wasn't just trying to push the ball down the field at all times. Because I think that when Anthony Richardson gets sped up, and we saw it a bit last year, and he's kind of lost, and he's like, where's Alec Pierce? How far down the field is he? And then he just, slings it. So, like that is the thing that I want to hear from him. Like, I'm sure he's going to misread the coverage. He's probably going to throw at least one interception today. But does he have the ability to stay within himself after making a mistake? And can he stay within himself to a point where he just takes what's there? I don't want to hear that he was overly aggressive. He needs to be properly aggressive. So that is the big thing that I want to hear today. And I just really hope that he surprises me. If I had to bet whether Anthony Richardson had a good day or a bad day, and I had to pick one, I would bet that he has a bad day. Because I just I get it, in Westfield, he's playing great. That doesn't matter to me. Based off of, the 2 years of evidence that we have, he's not very good. And so if I had to bet one way or the other today, I would bet that Anthony Richardson struggles. That's what I'd bet. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that all the progress that people are seeing in training camp shows up today. If it does, and we hear that he had a good day, then I'll slowly start to become a believer in who Anthony Richardson is and can be as a starting quarterback in the NFL. Because if you go into Baltimore, and look, it's a little different because it's not a real game, but if you go into Baltimore in this joint practice, Jim Harbaugh is on the record saying that they're going to play a lot of their ones today. And you show up and you play well, then that means something to me. But tearing up this Colts defense here in Baltimore doesn't really mean much. What about Daniel Jones? I just hope Daniel Jones can be Daniel Jones. Complete some checkdowns, scamper for a couple first downs. Just don't waltz out there and start throwing a whole bunch of picks. Because that would be not good. Seriously, that would be not good. I would like for this to continue to be a real quarterback competition. If Daniel Jones goes out there and he just looks overwhelmed, which I don't think is going to be the case. The guy's played enough football in the NFL to kind of be okay. If he can just be yourself, if on a scale of 1 to 10, Daniel Jones has like a 5 in terms of the kind of day that he has, and he's just really average, then I'm like, all right, he stays in the running for starting quarterback here in Indianapolis. So we'll see. But I think the thing that I want more than both of those things, I just want for it to be apparent. I just want for it to be so obvious. I want for Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones to be able to walk off the field with like a sticky note in their hand and just like give it to Shane Steichen. And the sticky note says, after today, I am clearly the starting quarterback. That's what I want more than anything else. Okay, now obviously, what I would like the most is Daniel Jones has like a good day. If you're rating his day on a scale of 1 to 10, he has like a 6, but Anthony Richardson has like a 10, or the inverse. That would be the best, right? But I just want for one guy to clearly look like the guy. That is what I want to happen today. Not because I think that if after one joint practice against a good Ravens team, that the Colts will make a decision on who's going to be the starter, but I do hope that they can start to lean one way after this practice. That would be the best, or after today and Thursday, because they're going to work so much stuff today. Preseason games are cool. Because you're actually on the field and there's a clock and there are people in the stands and all that. So that's cool. But today, they're going to be able to definitely work on things. For example, I'm sure that they'll have a period today where they stop whatever they're doing. They're like, all right, guys, 2-minute drill. Let's go. And they will just do the 2-minute drill. You may not get that opportunity in the game on Thursday night. You may not. So today carries a lot of weight for me. And I just really hope that one of those two guys is just off the charts amazing. And we can walk into this next, preseason game ready to kind of see who the Colts think is going to be the starter, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to be apparent today who has the better day. The other thing, or another thing that I would really like to see is I want to hear about someone on the defensive line having a big day. Preferably not Kwity Paye, not DeForest Buckner, not Grover Stewart, because we know what we're getting from all three of those guys. Buckner, if he's healthy, he'll be around 8.5, 9 sacks. Grover Stewart, going to defend the run and do those really important things. And Kwity Paye is going to be a good, run defender, and he's probably going to get 8-ish sacks. We know what we're going to get from them. I want to hear about Leatu Latu having a day. Like that's what I want to hear. And look, it's going to be really tough today for this defensive line to have a day because it's Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson that they're about to be chasing after behind a really good offensive line. So that's the other thing. It would mean a lot if Leatu Latu had a day today. It's like, against that offensive line, he's like running down Lamar Jackson and actually recording sacks. Like guys don't do that to Lamar Jackson. It'll be a little bit easier because obviously Lamar will be in the red jersey, the don't touch me jersey. And if it's not Latu, haven't heard a peep about JT Tuimoloau. Haven't heard a peep about him. And I'm just kind of sitting here waiting, like, all right, like when's the big, JT Tuimoloau day? Like when am I going to hear about that guy? And I'm just feel like we're just kind of waiting. And so today would be a great day to hear about JT Tuimoloau. Like this is a guy that the Colts spent a second-round pick on. This is a dude who had a really good year at Ohio State. So hopefully we hear something positive about him today. We'll see. We'll see if we do or not. Because obviously, like Grover Stewart and Buckner, like they're going to shore up the interior part of that defensive line. The concern for the defensive line is the edge rushers and the depth. Like that's what I'm worried about. And it would be a great sign if we heard about one of these edge rushers, not named Kwity Paye, because I'm not buying into that guy. But it'd be great if we heard about one of these edge rushers or one of these backup defensive tackles having a good day against a good Ravens offense. That is what I want to hear about. Daniel Jones and Richardson, one of them balls out, the other one's solid, and then we hear something about the defensive line. There's a little bit more that I'm looking forward to hearing about as well when it comes to the Colts and their practice in Baltimore. There's been a lot of talk about Charvarius Ward and Cam Bynum, as there should be. Like those are two of the new guys, and obviously, like we want to pay attention to who the new guys are. But what about the other guys in the secondary? What do we expect for them to look like today? Because we're going to find out a lot about both of them taking on this Ravens offense, and I'm going to talk about that when we come back in 4 minutes.
Weeknights at noon. The Real Jonathan Smith Show. Now, this is Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. You can head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X _ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your app. So all eyes today are going to be on Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. The quarterback battle continues as they are in Baltimore for that joint practice against the Baltimore Ravens. And, you know, like, that is obviously the most important thing going on today. That is the thing that people are the most intrigued by. And there's going to be a lot of talk about the offense. But believe it or not, the Indianapolis Colts did not leave their defense here. So I want to talk about this defense a little bit as well. I want to know how the secondary looks with players not named Charvarius Ward or Cam Bynum. That's what I want to know, because Charvarius Ward and Cam Bynum are going to be fine. Charvarius Ward and Cam Bynum could have terrible days today. There could be reports coming in that, you know, Charvarius Ward is out here giving up 80-yard touchdowns and he can't guard Zay Flowers. And then, you know, Cam Bynum's not doing his job on the back end of the defense, and all that could come out today. And I wouldn't care, because Charvarius Ward and Cam Bynum have a track record of success. Like, you say, oh, Charvarius Ward had a bad day today. Okay, let me just go back to the last 4 years of him in San Francisco playing outstanding corner. Like, I can just go look at that. Oh, Cam Bynum really struggled today. Okay, let's just go back to the last 2 years when he's in Minnesota playing really well in real NFL games. So I'm not worried about those guys one way or the other. Who I am worried about is Nick Cross, who's going to be the starting strong safety again. He wasn't bad last year. You know, I think that he surprised a lot of people, right, with the way that he played. And I want to see mainly, how does Justin Wally look? Because this Ravens passing attack is explosive, to say the least. I mean, like, it is so explosive. You know, Zay Flowers, really fast. They went out and they signed Rashad Bateman. They've got DeAndre Hopkins. They went out and got him. Mark Andrews had a down year last year, but he's still a really good tight end. You know, so like they've got really good, very explosive players. Like, they're going to, you know, probably throw the ball to Justice Hill a little bit out of the backfield. So how does Nick Cross and Justin Wally kind of respond to this? Like how do they hold up, right? Like with Nick Cross, I'm assuming it'll be a normal Nick Cross thing, right? Where, you know, he comes in and, you know, he probably tackles well, right? Like, with all the Colts tackling issues last year, Nick Cross was fine. You know, he was 7th in the NFL in solo tackles last year. You know, he was tied for 19th in interceptions. Just needs to be a little more consistent on the back end. So I think in terms of his ability to finish plays with tackles, Nick Cross will be fine. The question is, how does he hold up in coverage? That is, I would really love a good report on that as we go into, you know, another year of Nick Cross being the Colts starting safety. Justin Wally, I've got no idea. People seem to really like him. You know, he's apparently got some bounce and some swagger to him, not in like a cocky way, but just more of in a, this is how I expect for defensive backs to behave kind of way, right? He's got a lot of energy. He's moving around, all that kind of stuff, which is great. Like, I'm glad to hear that about him. But what I would also like to hear about him is that Zay Flowers couldn't get open when defended by Justin Wally. Is that going to happen? Probably not. But I'm hoping that we hear that he has a good day, because as of right now, Juju Brent's, you know, out with a hamstring. Jalen Jones tweaked his hamstring. Justin Wally, this is a real opportunity for him to just kind of grab and run away with that cornerback to starting spot. Because obviously, like, Charvarius Ward is going to be the Colts start, like their best corner. Like, he is absolutely going to start for them this year. They went out in the offseason and they paid him too much money to not play, to not start him. So Wally, like, this is a real opportunity for him to go out and solidify himself as cornerback number 2. Hopefully that happens today. I'm always in favor of getting younger, especially if the guy can play. And by what's been said about him during camp, seems like he should be able to play a little bit. Now, the Colts day is not going to go perfect because they're playing the Ravens, just the team that's simply better than them. And if I had to bet on one thing going wrong, or like one position group not having a good day for the Colts today, it would be I would place my bet on these linebackers. I expect for the linebackers of the Indianapolis Colts to have an absolutely brutal day. An absolutely brutal day. Cameron McGrone, sorry, I don't even know who that is, but he's projected to replace EJ Speed. Cameron McGrone had 4 tackles last year. 4 solo tackles, to say it a little more accurately. A guy who appeared in 9 games and had 6 tackles total between solo and assisted. That's the guy who is currently set to start alongside Zaire Franklin. Sorry, that just doesn't inspire a ton of confidence in me based off of, everything we've seen. Jalen Carlies, hey, he played a little bit more last year, but former 5th round pick out of Missouri. Oh my gosh. It's going to be a brutal day for those guys. And Zaire Franklin, who is back, by the way. I know that a podcast episode hasn't gone up from him saying that he's back, but he is. So it's just going to be a brutal day for them. You just know that it is. You just do. Like Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry running downhill at them. If I was the Ravens, I would pick on those dudes all day. Make them run, make them cover, run the football right at Zaire Franklin, who missed a ton of tackles last year. If I had to bet on any position group to be bad, it'd be that one. It's just the linebackers this year are going to be awful, but it's okay. It's not, but I'm just going to say that it is. Something that really is okay. The Indiana Fever have won 5 games in a row. They're now 8-2 in their last 10 games. This 5-game win streak has come without Caitlin Clark, and they're against some like halfway decent teams. Also, this 5-game win streak has bumped them up. They are now 5th in the WNBA standings. Right? They should play again here soon against the Sparks tonight. Yeah, tonight, 10 o'clock. They're gonna play against the Sparks, and like I said, like they have some good wins here as of late, and like they beat Seattle the other night. They beat Dallas, who's not very good. Phoenix, 3 games ago. Chicago before that. The Aces before that. Like 5 wins in a row without Caitlin Clark, being carried by the one and only Kelsey Mitchell, she's just a bucket. Like she just kind of finds a way to score. It's really fun just kind of watching her play. And I do think one of the best things that's happened to the Fever this year is they let the Bonner chick go. She went to Phoenix or wherever to be with her, I guess, wife or whatever it is. And that opened up the opportunity for the Fever to go out and sign Aria McDonald, who's just been really good kind of in this stretch without Caitlin Clark. She had like 27 the other night. She's been really good here as of late, kind of helping fill that gap. And I've talked about this a little bit, but the Fever have a really good roster. Like they've got good players, clearly. Like you don't win 5 games in a row unless you have good players. And once again, that's 5 games in a row without Caitlin Clark. Once again, 8-2 in their last 10. Like they're kind of starting to figure some things out. Sophie Cunningham, she's starting to shoot it a little bit better. She had 17 against Seattle. Maybe a podcast is what she needed to finally kind of get going. 12 against Phoenix, shot the ball pretty well in that game. had 15 against the Aces, shot 75% from three in that game. Like she's kind of starting to figure it out as well. So like the Fever are trending in the right direction. Do they have enough to like win the WNBA finals without Caitlin Clark? Absolutely not. If you think that the Fever are better without Caitlin Clark, I would disagree, because like you need a player like Caitlin Clark if you want to win the whole thing. But she's set to come back at some point. Seems like it'll probably be around the third week in August. So, around the same time that college football starts. And if she's able to come back and, be her normal self, and not shoot like 28% from three and finish around the rim a little bit better and turn the ball over a little bit less. Like if she can get right, like this Fever team has enough talent to make a run and win the whole thing. Like that is the very simple reality for this Indiana Fever team. So very intrigued to kind of see how they look when she comes back here in about a week and a half. And yeah, it'll be fun. Like I hope they go on a deep playoff run, and I hope Caitlin comes back and starts shooting the ball a little bit better and makes better decisions with the basketball, because that has been an issue for her time and time again throughout her very short career in the WNBA. She turned the ball over too much last year when she's played this year. That bad habit has continued. The college football 2025 coaches poll, the first one's out. Texas and Ohio State playing each other week 1. And that's number 1 against number 2. Can't wait. That game's going to be awesome. That's on the 30th, so 25 days away from that. Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be so great. College football, it's almost here. Indiana coming in at 19th. We'll see how good they are. I get it. We're very excited about, Fernando Mendoza, and he's a dark horse for the Heisman and all this kind of stuff. I kind of expect for Indiana to be in a pretty similar place that they were in last year, where it's like, yes, this is a good football team, but they are very clearly a step below the elite teams of college football. Okay. Like they got housed by Ohio State. They got housed by Notre Dame, and they beat everybody else. And that's kind of where I expect for them to be once again this season. Right now, the upgraded quarterback, that gives you an opportunity to, maybe win a game that you shouldn't. Like maybe Fernando Mendoza rolls into Oregon and he just looks awesome, and he has the game of his life and he throws for 400 yards and all that kind of stuff. Like that'd be awesome. That would be great. But unless something like that happens, you're not beating Oregon on the road, and you're not beating Penn State on the road either. Illinois at home, Saturday, September 20th. That is a big one. It is. And that game's probably going to determine whether or not Indiana makes the playoff. Because if they lose 3 games this year, it's going to be really tough to get in, especially if those 3 losses are to Illinois, Oregon, and Penn State. Illinois ranked really high in this first coaches poll. They're ranked 12th. So to me, like that's telling me that they are projected to be a playoff team. Okay, whereas Indiana is not. So if your 3 losses come to, the 3 good teams on your schedule, then that's probably going to leave you out of the college football playoff, or at least it should. Will it? I don't know. It feels like the standard for what gets you into and what doesn't get you into the college football playoff changes every single year, but the odds would not be in the Hoosiers' favor if they lost to Illinois, Penn State, and Oregon. That game against Illinois, it's a big one, and it's going to be their first real challenge. Like we're not really going to know a ton about this Indiana team until that game, so we'll kind of see how it goes. Whereas Illinois is returning a lot of their starters from last year, including their starting quarterback. They're going to have a bit more of a tune-up game week 2 when they play against Duke, right? You say, oh, it's Duke. Duke's not bad. They're not great, but they're certainly better than teams like Kennesaw State, Old Dominion, and Indiana State. So we're going to know a little bit more about Illinois than we do IU going into that game. It'll be really, really interesting to kind of see how everything goes. When we come back, top of the hour, 11 o'clock, I want to talk a little bit about the Colts, or a lot more about the Colts. That's been, 90% of the show today, as they're up in Baltimore for their joint practice against the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, their first preseason game Thursday night against the Ravens. Can't wait. It's going to be so, so glorious. College football, less than 3 weeks away. It's going to be awesome. So when we come back, though, at 11, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Colts and their identity. We're about 25 minutes away from having Blaiden Kirk on from the Stay Hot podcast, a sports podcast, where they did a whole thing on the AFC South yesterday. It's really good. You should go and listen to it at some point. So he's going to join at 11:20. So when we come back here in about 4.5 minutes, more thoughts on the Colts and their identity as a football team.
This is Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, WXNT AM, Indianapolis, WNDX HD2, Lawrence, Indianapolis, a Cumulus media station. Let's do this. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. You can head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X, __ Jonathan Smith. Follow me there and watch the show there. You can, of course, also listen on that Indy's Sports Ticket app. Coming up here in about 20 minutes, Blaiden Kirk from the Stay Hot Pod is going to join the show. Fantastic sports podcast that you should 1,000% go and check out. Can't wait to have him on. Had him on a couple weeks ago, and he was really, really good. Now, the Colts. I was thinking about them last night compared to, good football teams, because this is not a good football team. This is an average at best football team. And honestly, if they're average, I'll be kind of surprised. I think this is a 7, maybe they get to 8 win team. Okay. Now, the Colts identity. I think every good team in the NFL has 3 things. They have a good quarterback. They have a good head coach, right? I think that's where people start when they talk about, traits of good teams. And they also have a real identity. The Colts do not have an identity. Okay. And then when you go through the best teams in the NFL, like, they all have one. The Lions are incredibly tough and aggressive, right? Like, they go for it on fourth down. I don't know if you remember this earlier in the season. They were playing, I think, the Packers at home, and it was like 4th and 1, and they could have kicked a field goal, but if they kicked a field goal, then they would have gone up 5 and all this kind of stuff, right? With like 1 minute and 40 seconds left. And they went for it instead of taking the points. And they ended up running out the clock, and they won the game. And it's like, that's who the Detroit Lions are. They are aggressive. And how did they pick up the first down? They ran the football. They are aggressive, and they are physical and tough. The Chiefs, savvy and clutch. The Rams, very innovative offensively. The Bills are incredibly physical. Like, to me, I think the Bills are the most physical football team in the NFL. The Steelers, consistent. Like, you know exactly what you're getting. 9-8 or better every year. You know that they're going to be well coached. You know that the defense is going to be flying around. And you know that they're going to run the football. They are consistent, and they're very physical. The Ravens are blazing fast on both sides of the ball and physical. The Eagles, very physical in the trenches. Okay? I can go on. The best teams in the NFL have an identity. What has the Colts' identity been the last 2 years under Shane Steichen, now going into year 3? What's their identity been under Chris Ballard for the last 9 years? We're average at everything. We go 9-8. We don't make decisions until we absolutely have to. Which is that sums up Chris Ballard right there. I'm not going to draft a quarterback until I absolutely have to. I'm not going to use free agency until my job's on the line, and I absolutely have to, even though everyone could have told you last year that the Colts secondary was going to be terrible. So on and so forth. Like that is who the Colts have been. They haven't had an identity. They haven't. And I think it's really hard to win games when you don't know who you are. I think it's really hard to be successful in life when you don't know who you are. And the thing about the Colts that's so frustrating about the lack of having a real identity is they should have one. Like, you look at the roster, and it's right in front of your face what this Colts football team should be. And the issue is the personnel doesn't line up with what Shane Steichen wants for their identity to be. Shane Steichen's offense, when he was in Los Angeles working with Justin Herbert, what was it? Explosive. Pushed the ball down the field. Justin Herbert threw for 5,000 yards that year. And then what happens? He goes to the Eagles. And he gets Jalen Hurts, and they were very explosive in the run game, and they were pushing the ball down the field to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and they had really good tight ends that they were using kind of deeper down the middle of the field. That is what Shane Steichen wants. He wants to push the ball down the field. He wants a big play, very explosive, high-powered offense. That's what he wants. We saw it last year. They threw the ball way too much. The issue is the Colts can't be that. Like, they just don't have the personnel to be what I think Shane Steichen wants them to be, a high-powered, explosive offense. Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones, whoever the starting quarterback is this year. Like, we saw what Anthony Richardson looked like trying to push the ball down the field last year. It wasn't great. It was bad. Daniel Jones, check down Charlie, baby. Like, they don't have the right quarterback to do what Shane Steichen wants for them to do. They also don't have the right receivers. They have a bunch of specialists at wide receiver. Josh Downs, an underneath short route guy. Alec Pierce, I'm going to run really far. Michael Pittman Jr., I run good crossing routes. That's it. Like they don't have an A.J. Brown or a Devontae Smith or even like a Keenan Allen from when Shane Steichen was in L.A. That was like peak Keenan Allen. Like they don't have anybody like that. Like they don't have the personnel to do what Shane Steichen wants to do. Like trying to create an explosive offense with this Colts personnel is like me trying to put on my 2-year-old nephew's shoes. Like it's not going to work. What the identity of the Colts should be is not big explosive plays. It should look like the Titans offense when Ryan Tannehill was their quarterback and Derrick Henry was playing running back. Run the football, shorten the game, like hold on to that ball as long as you can. Try not to put, your defense out there for 40 minutes a night like the Colts did last year. The Colts should be a run-first football team. That should be their identity. Chris Ballard, what has he talked about more than anything else over the last 9 years? Competition. No, that started this year. Free agency. No, that started this year. The trenches. Chris Ballard talks about the importance of offensive and defensive line play more than anything else. And yet, for some reason, that hasn't been this team's identity. The Colts have one of the best running backs in the NFL with Jonathan Taylor. Quentin Nelson, whether you like that Chris Ballard spent the 6th overall pick on him or not, that dude's been awesome since he showed up here. Bernard Raymond, they just extended 4 years, $100 million. The Colts should line the football up this year and run it 15 to 20 times a game. That should be what they do. And they should be known as a run-first, downhill, physical offense. That is what the identity of the offense should be. You know why? Who are the 3 best players on this Colts offense? Jonathan Taylor, Quentin Nelson, and Bernard Raymond. Those are the 3 best players on this Colts offense. I don't think it's even any sort of question. And your identity needs to revolve around your best players, the Lions. I'm going to keep going back to them. Like, they are a very physical football team. You know why? Because Penei Sewell's the best player on that offense. And then you can make an argument that Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery aren't far behind him. If you want to say it's Amon-Ra St. Brown, okay, that's fine. But either way, 3 of their 4 best players are involved in physical running the football. Like that's it. Your identity has to revolve around your best players. And the Colts had 11 games last year where they threw the ball 28 times or more. And that's not exactly a fair stat because obviously when you're trailing late in games, like you're going to throw the ball more, and the Colts trailed a lot last year. But still, that's too many. When it happens 11 times, you're not just doing it because you're trailing late. You're doing it because you like to throw the football for some reason. Whether it's Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson playing quarterback this year for the Colts, they should absolutely not throw the ball 28 times or more 11 times this year. They should run the football. They should turn around and they should hand the ball off to Jonathan Taylor or DJ Giddens or Khalil Herbert or Tyler Goodson, whatever. Like you've got a real running back room this year. Like Trey Sermon as your backup running back last year, not ideal. So maybe you wanted to kind of spell Jonathan Taylor a little bit by throwing the football. Okay, fine. That's not an excuse this year. Run the football with Jonathan Taylor and with your quarterbacks. Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson can both run. The best year of Daniel Jones' career came when Brian Dable had him do a lot of the read option stuff, and they would run him in the red zone. Anthony Richardson wasn't drafted 4th overall because of his ability to throw the football. He was drafted 4th overall because of the arm talent and his ability to run at 6'4", 240 pounds. Run the football. Both quarterbacks can run, and you have Jonathan Taylor behind an offensive line that should be able to run block. I thought that the offensive line did a fine job run blocking last year. The other reason why they should run the football more is because physical, tough football teams run the football. That's the reality of it. And when you look at the best teams in the NFL, toughness and physicality is in their identity. The Lions, that's a tough, physical football team. The Chiefs always find a way to run the football well. The Rams, very innovative offensively. And when people think about Sean McVay, they think about, they throw the football so well and all that kind of stuff, which is true. But you know what else you have to think about when you think about the Rams? Todd Gurley running the football for 1,000,000 yards when Sean McVay first got there. And now Kyron Williams running the football consistently. That is a physical, tough football team. The Steelers and the Ravens, they're both the definitions of physical and tough. The Eagles, that team, very tough, very physical. It is a part of every single team in the NFL that actually competes for something every year. Okay? You know why the Dolphins don't compete for anything? Because their identity is it's just speed. That's it. There is no physicality. There's no consistent run game. They're just not a very physical football team. And the Colts, well, they're not as, soft as the Miami Dolphins are. They're also not as tough and physical as those other teams that I mentioned, the Rams and the Eagles and the Chiefs and the Lions and so on. They've got to become a more physical football team. That has to be part of their identity this year. I didn't feel like it was last year. And they can do that by running the football a little bit more often this year. Defensively, the identity for the Colts, I know what I'd like for it to be. I don't think it can be this. I'd like for them to be fast and physical. I think that's what everybody wants for their defense to be. But I just don't think that they have the personnel for it. So in terms of what their defense will actually be this year, I really don't know. I hope that it's a defense that it's just kind of bend but don't break. And then Charvarius Ward or Cam Bynum or Kenny Moore or Leatu Latu find a way to make a big play from time to time. Because I just don't think that the Colts defense top to bottom is talented enough to just be you know what, we're just going to force three and outs this game. I don't think that that's who they're going to be. So they're going to need the better players on their defense, Charvarius Ward, Cam Bynum, Kenny Moore, hopefully Leatu Latu. Hopefully, one of those four guys can occasionally make a big play. And hopefully the genius of Lou Anarumo, also known as the mad scientist, hopefully his genius can kind of filter the Colts or allow the Colts to pick up a couple extra stops as well. So the identity of the Colts this year, it's got to be more physical. It's got to be tougher than what it was last year. Because last year, it just wasn't enough. There's no other way to put it. They weren't physical enough. They weren't tough enough. I don't even know what their identity was last year. We throw the ball deep and hope Alec Pierce can hold on to it. That's what it seems like. So we'll see. I'm going to talk to Blaiden Kirk from the Stay Hot podcast when we come back here in about 4 minutes about the Colts and their identity. We're going to talk about the AFC South as a whole as well, just kind of going into the season. He and his guys over at the Stay Hot podcast, they did a full AFC South review thing yesterday. So make sure you go and check that out. Blaiden Kirk from the Stay Hot Pod joins the show here in about 4 minutes.
It may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt. Uh-oh.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Waiting on Blaiden Kirk from the Stay Hot podcast with a cover the NFL quite a bit. So I think that's him on the line right here. What's going on, Blaiden? You're on the air. Can you hear me?
I can. How are you?
I'm doing good. Sorry about that. Our phone in here, man, it likes to be funny sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
So sorry about that. Joined by Blaiden Kirk from the Stay Hot podcast. They just released an AFC South preview yesterday. I listened to it last night while playing some video games. Really good stuff. I don't know the names of your co-hosts, but they are really smart guys.
Oh, yeah. Matt and Theo, they're the best.
Yeah, they really are. So they do a great job. So whenever you're done listening to my show, go and check out the Stay Hot podcast. All right, Blaiden, I want to start with the Texans because to me it kind of feels like it's the Texans' division to lose, and I think there's really kind of two things with Houston that people are intrigued by: the offensive line and Bobby Slowick isn't there anymore. I want to start with Slowick. How is the Texans offense going to improve with Bobby Slowick now out of the building?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that gets criticized often for the Texans offense last year is just the lack of situational awareness in the play calling, it feels like. Theo brought this up in our recent episode. We would bring it up all last season, just the inside runs on second and long that go absolutely nowhere. We saw that from the Patriots a good bit last year as well. It just puts the offense behind schedules so frequently. And that kind of stuff being gone, at the very least, will be able to help the offense for sure.
Have we seen a guy fall faster than Slowick? Like, he was getting like head coaching interviews, and then he coaches another year in Houston, and then like I don't think he's anywhere right now. I could be wrong on that, but have we seen this happen to anyone else?
I don't know. That's a good question. I haven't even thought about that. I almost wonder. I feel like Lou Anarumo at one point was getting head coach considerations in Cincinnati. And I know people were very low on Zach Taylor for a while, and I feel like that kind of flipped on its head. Like, people now have more admiration for Zach Taylor than they do on Anarumo. So that's kind of the only thing I can think of off the top of my head. But outside of that, no, I do think you're right. Like, Slowick might be like the hardest fall off in terms of like just general perception.
Yeah, he's apparently the senior passing game coordinator in Miami, so he probably is going to get fired at the end of this year as well. Probably not the job that I would have taken.
Yeah. But it pays the bill.
It's right. It pays more than just the bills. It pays for a lot of things. Joined by Blaiden Kirk from the Stay Hot pod. You should go and check that out. They did a whole AFC South preview yesterday, talking about the Texans right now. The offensive line is the other thing. Can it be worse than last year? You know, CJ Stroud got sacked 59 times, which somehow wasn't the most in the NFL. Do you expect for the offensive line to be better or worse in Houston?
It's hard for me to look at this offensive line and not think it's the worst in football. Like, even if it's better in sense that, like, okay, maybe they have more cohesion. Maybe they're on the same page more. I know a lot of their issues stemmed from just not being able to pick up stunts, which is just like such basic stuff for an offensive line to need to be able to do. So, like, maybe it's better in that sense, but in terms of like talent, I don't think it's better. Like, again, I mean, if we're just going off of names here, Cam Robinson, Laken Tomlinson, Jarrett Patterson, Titus Howard, and Ursary. I'm terrible at pronouncing his name, but like, I just can't see a world where it's significantly better. I still think it's probably one of, if not the worst offensive line in football. And that's the biggest thing that has me concerned for this offense.
Me too. I think that's the thing that people are focusing on. But you guys brought up, as I was listening last night, you're the first people that I've heard bring this up. You guys are kind of concerned about the weapons in Houston, which when I look at them, like Nico Collins is obviously a really good player. Tank Dell's going to be out. We don't really know when he's coming back. Jaden Higgins, is okay. Christian Kirk, I don't mind. I still like Dalton Schultz. I know he's a little bit older. What is it about these weapons that kind of have you a little more concerned?
Well, it's not that it's a bad weapons group, but when you think about some of the other premier offenses in football, it feels like they are one of the lower tier weapons groups. You know, you look at like even Baltimore, who a lot of people consider not to have like great weapons. I would probably rather have Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Zay Flowers over like everyone except for Nico Collins. But, you know, Nico Collins is like the duo for CJ Stroud in the way that like Derrick Henry is the second half of Lamar Jackson. So like in terms of just like if we're counting like the number of good players after the quarterback, like the only guy that I really love is Nico Collins, where when you look at some of the other major offenses, I just feel like there's more names to really get excited about. Joe Mixon's getting up there. He's, you know, injured this preseason. And then like the backup is Nick Chubb, who coming off of his slew of injuries hasn't looked great. And then it's Dameon Pierce. And like you meant, like Jaden Higgins is a rookie, but like you're asking him to kind of be great right away. And then if not him, then it's Christian Kirk, who is like not that great. Like if he's your wide receiver too, are you feeling that good about it? I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not either. I'm kind of hoping we see a little bit of John Mechie this year. I feel like whenever he plays, I feel like he plays well. But
yeah,
he's still kind of buried there. But look, they see that guy every day. They know way more than I do about him. Joined by Blaiden Kirk from the Stay Hot Pod. Do you like the Texans' weapons more than the Colts?
that is. I think they're probably about the same. I mean, Jonathan Taylor's outstanding, obviously. Maybe I lean the Texans because I think Nico Collins might be a better receiver than Jonathan Taylor is running back. But I don't know. Like I like Michael Pittman. I like Alec Pierce. I like Downs. I think that's a better like trio of receivers than like what the Texans have. It's just like Nico is so good that it kind of makes up for it. Like I think that would be the only reason that I would take the Texans is because they have the one premier guy who could any given year probably make a case to be the best receiver in football. And I don't think the Colts have that.
Yeah,
but I think the Colts are deeper.
That's fair. My thing with the Colts weapons, I feel like they just have a bunch of like specialists, if that makes sense. Like Alec Pierce can really only go deep. Josh Downs is a guy who like he has the speed to stretch the field, but he's so small that if he's covered, it's kind of tough to get it to him. So he kind of has to operate in the shorter part of the field. And Michael Pittman Jr.'s like he doesn't have the speed to really stretch the field. And so he's more of this like middle of the field guy, which isn't a bad thing, right? Because you check all the boxes. But I feel like that's the thing that this Colts offense is really missing is a guy who can just kind of do a little bit of everything. And I think there's some hope that Tyler Warren might be able to give them a little bit of that. But it's like, how can you ask a rookie that plays tight end, not named Brock Bowers, to do that, you know?
Yeah, I think it's more of like you say, they have a lot of specialists on their offense. And I think that kind of works to their favor a little bit because you can have Pittman out there who is kind of your, well, I need a catch right now. Let's just get it to this guy. Even if he's covered, I feel confident that he's going to be able to make a play. You have Downs who's like, you know, he's very quick. He's got very good routes. He's going to be good in the intermediate and short range. And then Pierce is your deep threat. And then I think Warren, what he kind of allows you to do is basically make up for what you don't have on the field at that time. So he's just kind of a utility piece, sort of what he was like in college. And because he can do everything, you can just ask him to do whatever you need on a given play, whether that's block, whether that's, you know, operate as a screen specialist, whether that's, you know, operate in the middle of the field. So I think Warren can actually be a pretty useful piece for them, even though, like, I wasn't the biggest Warren fan compared to some of the other, like, I love Colson Loveland. I think he's going to be an absolute beast in Chicago, but I still think Warren's going to be a useful piece for Indianapolis. And I think the 5 weapons that they have starting are quite good if the quarterback play can be up to par.
That is the question, and no one has the answer. It's going to be an interesting offensive season for the Colts. Joined by Blaiden Kirk. You can follow him on X at Blaiden. Speaking of X, Blaiden, you had this tweet yesterday that I have to ask you about. You said that this was the lowest that you've been on the Colts in a while. What is it about the Colts this year that makes you feel not as good about them? Because, like, with the exception of Javarius Ward and Cam Bynum, it feels like the Colts have just kind of brought back the same guys over and over and over again for the last, like, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and that's really kind of – it just feels like they're sort of running back the same thing again. Like, yes, they have brought in some guys. I think Ward and Bynum are both good additions. And I'm trying to be optimistic about the Anarumo hiring as well, because I do think he's got some juice as a defensive play caller. My concern is that their pass rush requires at least one guy to make a leap, to make like a significant jump, whether that's Latu, whether that's Kwity Paye in, I don't even know what this
year
is.
5.
Year 4, year 5, yeah. Or like Ebu Kam. Like, you need someone, or maybe JTT as a rookie, you need someone to really step up and be a premier pass rusher coming off the edge. Like, you can't just keep relying on Buckner and Stewart to just kind of wreck stuff on the interior and like, well, everyone else is like a solid run defender, so it kind of works out. Like, you need someone to make that leap, and that's the one thing that we never really saw in Cincinnati was a defensive player be able to, like, really step up and take the leap under Lou Anarumo. So that's one thing that I'm a little bit concerned about, and then obviously the quarterback situation, which seems like, from obviously Steichen is saying that it's a 50-50. It could be either guy. It could be Richardson or Daniel Jones. But most of what I've seen from people who are at camp are saying that Richardson is by far and away better than Daniel Jones right now.
That's what I've seen too, just talking to people who have been there. That's what it seems like. But I think to defend Steichen a little bit, like, I just don't think that a few training camp practices can erase the last 2 seasons. And I just...
No, I agree. And, like, obviously, I think he's, like, right to say that. Like, he's
yes,
like,
yeah.
Like, there's no world where you're going to, like, 1 week into practice be like, yep, that's our guy.
I think we're going to learn a lot over the next, I think it's 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, today, they're having a joint practice against the Ravens. And, like, I'll just ask you, I asked myself this question earlier in the show. If you had to bet on Anthony Richardson having a good day or a bad day today against Baltimore, which one would you pick?
I mean, we're talking Kyle Hamilton, like Matabike, Nate Wiggins. He might have a rough day, but, like, I don't know. I wouldn't expect Daniel Jones to have a great day against this defense either.
That's the terrible part about this. It's like, I don't expect either one to play well. But at least with Daniel Jones, I feel like he can run Steichen's offense. And I do think that there's a part of Steichen that's like, if Gardner Minshew, who's, a career backup, if he completes, a swing pass his first year here, then the Colts make the playoffs with the quarterback who really just kind of did what Steichen wanted him to do. And I think that Daniel Jones can do that. And so the quarterback thing is interesting because I think, like, you're right in terms of Anthony Richardson has looked so much better. But at the same time, like, when you're Steichen and you might get fired at the end of the year if you don't win games, do you just go with the guy who can do what you're going to ask him to do, even if he can't do more than that, like an Anthony Richardson probably can, or maybe not at some point in his career?
Yeah, and I know, like, the interview with Richardson after, I think it was last week, they were interviewing him, and he was saying how he was sort of coasting last year, and he feels like he's really working a lot harder this season, which is like optimistic. And apparently he like totally reworked his mechanics, which I told Theo that, and he like jumped out of his seat. He was like, yes, I've never seen him so excited. So I do think to some level, I do think Richardson is going to end up being the starter. Like it, and that seems to be the general consensus, is that Daniel Jones is purely there to to give Richardson some like sense of urgency. That, hey, it's not just Steichen's job on the line, it's yours too. We drafted you top 5. Show us why. So I don't know. It's hard for me to be high on the Colts when there's just so many ifs. It's like, if the quarterback situation is good, and if Lou Anarumo can get Latu to be like a premier pass rusher, or Ebukam or Pay, like they have a lot of guys who could take that leap. It's like, just which one?
Yeah,
and also the stink.
They also what?
The linebackers stink.
The linebackers are so bad. Blaiden, it's brutal. Joined by Blaiden Kirk from the Stay Hot Pod. They had a podcast come out yesterday covering the AFC South. Blaiden, it's going to be Zaire Franklin, and the last time you were on, we talked about how awful he is. And then it's no longer going to be Jalen Carlisle, apparently. It's going to be Cameron McGrone. He had 6 tackles last year. So that inspires some confidence. And then the strong side linebacker is going to be Segun Alubi, who also had 6 tackles last year. So it's just, Lou Anarumo is going to have to be awesome. And Leatu Latu is going to have to be, and that's the other thing with the defensive line. Like, they need a leap from a guy, not just to have a pass rush, but it's just, they also need a leap because there's no depth. Like, I don't know how familiar you are with the Colts' depth on the defensive line, but it's non-existent. And I just, I don't know if you're a big gambler or not, but the Colts over-under is 7.5. I'm not taking the over. I know that. Just because
I would be confident in taking the over. Yeah, the depth on the defensive line is not great, and it's like even though they have some good run defenders there, because the linebackers are so bad, I don't feel comfortable that they're going to have a generally good run defense. I almost wonder how much better is this defense in terms of talent than like Cincinnati last year. Like outside of Ward and Bynum, it's really not that different, I fear.
Yeah. You're hoping that Nick Cross gets a little bit better. He wasn't great last year. He wasn't terrible either. And then the other hope is Latu. I mean, he was the first defensive player taken in that draft. Like, he should, doesn't mean he will, but he should be a guy. And I don't know. The one thing that I do like, and what will be refreshing about the Colts this year, is, I don't know how familiar you are with the Gus Bradley scheme, but it's like, we're going to play a cover 3 matching zone every down. And it's going to be nice to not see that. Like, it's going to be nice to know that, like, Lou Anarumo is at least going to switch it up if something isn't working. But I'm with you. Like, I just don't think that this team's super talented. I did want to ask, of all of the ifs, which one, except for quarterback, because that's the easy answer. Like,
sure.
Of all the ifs about this Colts team, which one's the most important besides the quarterback kind of figuring it out, whether it's Jones or Richardson?
I mean, I think it has to be Latu, right? Like you said, he was the first defensive player taken in his draft. He had 38 pressures last year, which is barely top 50. And there are plays where I think he was actually getting some decent push, and I do think he looked better than Kwity Paye. But like, him and Kwity Paye, similar snap counts, similar pressure numbers, and Paye was getting more sacks. I would have just expected him to have been better sooner. Is all.
Yeah, joined by Blaiden Kirk from the Stay Hot Pod. They had an episode come out yesterday previewing the AFC South. We're talking about the Colts. The Latu thing is interesting. The pressure, the total number of pressures don't bother me a ton, just because I think he played 53% of the snaps, which to me is really concerning. It's like
it's rotational, but you're right, that is concerning.
Yeah, and so it's like all of a sudden we're gonna let this guy go from playing like barely half the snaps to, I mean, because of the lack of depth, he's gonna have to probably play closer to like 70% of the snaps, and like coaches do everything for a reason. Like there's a reason why. I'm with you. I thought he looked better than Kwity Paye, but there's a reason why they played Kwity Paye more than Latu. And so I don't know. I'm not excited about this defense at all. What would have to happen for the Colts to finish second in the division? Because I do think I do think that it's the Texans' division to lose, even with the questions on offense, just because that Texans defense I think is going to be pretty outstanding this year.
Yeah, I mean, their defense is great. I mean, for them to finish second, for the Colts to finish second, I mean, the biggest thing, you just need the quarterback play to not be terrible. You can't be completing under 50% of your passes this year. You need to be able to go out and have a real passing attack. And then on defense, you need to be able to get after the quarterback, right? Because I don't trust the linebackers to really hold up in coverage, and I don't trust them to fill in the run game. So you need to be able to stop drives early, get sacks. And so I do think it's going to be a lot of, how much of a leap are these pass rushers going to take? How is Lou Anarumo going to draw stuff up? I do think he's a talented defensive play caller. So I'm with you on like getting away from the we're going cover three every single play no matter what. Like I get getting away from that is going to be a positive. So I think those are the two things that need to happen. And those are really big jumps to make, I think, from last year.
Last topic for you, Blaiden, and then I will let you go. I opened my show today, and I talked about the importance. I think every good team in the NFL has three things: a good coach, a good quarterback, and a legitimate identity. Like, I can watch you play a game and walk away and be like I know that the Lions are tough and very aggressive. Like you watch them play one game, and that's very apparent. Shane Steichen's been here 2 years, and I don't know what the Colts' identity is. If you had to make a guess or give them an identity, what would it be?
It's hard to have an identity when you're just bad on offense. I think they would like to be. I think they would like to be similar to that Eagles team that went to the Super Bowl the first time, right? Or even similar to the Eagles Super Bowl team this past year. I think they want to be a team that can lean on the run game, but it's like everyone's like, oh, but can they actually throw the ball? But then they can. I mean, we saw in the Super Bowl they went out and they were able to win behind Jalen Hurts' arm because the Chiefs wanted to key in so heavily on that rushing attack. I think that's what the Colts want to be. I think that's why they brought in Shane Steichen. They just haven't been able to deliver on that because Anthony Richardson hasn't been Jalen Hurts. He hasn't developed in the same way. And that's really, I think, the thing that makes, this quarterback search so interesting. People are looking for the talented guys, but being able to find someone who's shown signs of progression. And that's why the Anthony Richardson pick was so risky, is because he just hadn't played. It's like you don't know anything about this guy really, other than like he's got a big arm. He seems to have good nuance in the pocket, but it's going to be hard to find that identity when he just isn't playing a lot of football, and when he hasn't been good. So I think they want to be like the Eagles. I think they want to have this very run first identity and be able to hit shots down the sideline. And they have the pieces to do it, right? They've got Jonathan Taylor. They've got Pittman, who's a good contested catch artist. They've got Pierce, who's a fantastic deep threat. They bring in Tyler Warren. They've got a good offensive line. Like really, like a lot. This team feels very like diet Eagles, except the quarterback is truly like the biggest diet of all.
Instead of diet, it's like you're just fasting. Like there's just nothing there. Okay. I think that's kind of where I've landed out with them. I'm at a point with them this year, and I just kind of want your take on this, and then I'll let you go. Yeah. I just kind of think that they should play like the Tennessee Titans did when they had Ryan Tannehill as their quarterback. Like, let's run the football a bunch, and let's not ask whether it's Daniel Jones or Richardson. Like, let's ask him to make like 3 plays a game. Like, if we can get that from you, if we can not put our defense on the field for 35 to 40 minutes a game like they did last year, then I think that this Colts team is going to be fine, and they'll be able to maybe make the playoffs. But the games where you got Anthony Richardson throwing the football 35 times, probably not going to work. So what do you just think about the idea of the Colts kind of looking like those Mike Vrabel Titans teams with Ryan Tannehill as the quarterback?
I mean, I've seen people compare Daniel Jones a lot to Ryan Tannehill before. I don't think it'd be a terrible idea for them to kind of operate in that world. The only problem is when you need the quarterback to step up and make those plays, you actually need him to make those plays. Like for as much as for as little as the Titans asked of Ryan Tannehill, he was able to deliver in those moments where they did ask him to do things. Richardson hasn't been able to do that. Daniel Jones wasn't able to do that for the Giants. So it's just it's hard to ask to be like, oh, we got to build this scheme where we ask very little of the quarterback when the quarterback is just not good, right? It's easy to do that when your quarterback is like surface level, can hold you above water. But when you can't even do that, it's hard to get anywhere. More than anything else, you need a quarterback to be good, and you need that quarterback to be Richardson. Like if your bet is, dude, Daniel Jones can actually be good. Like year 7, Daniel Jones making the leap, that being your prayer, I hate to say it, probably not going to be a great year. Like if we're comparing them to Jacksonville, I think has a much easier path to even winning this division simply because you're not asking that much out of Trevor Lawrence in terms of like making the leap, right? We've seen Trevor Lawrence play good football before. And even when he's been playing sort of, quote, subpar, he hasn't been the worst quarterback in football. He's just been like sort of average-ish, which is disappointing for the number 1 overall pick. But he has at no point in his career really been a bad quarterback. It's just been about surrounding him with weapons. And now you're asking the defense to make a big leap from where it was last year because their passing defense was terrible. But with the additions of Travis Hunter and, they'll have Campbell healthy, like there's a world where the Jaguars are really, really good. And I think that world is more clear than the Indianapolis Colts right now.
I agree. I think part of that too is the Jags, their best players play the most important positions. Whereas with the Colts, like their best players don't. Like their best players play running back and offensive guard and that kind of stuff. And you look at the Jags and it's like, oh, their best offensive players probably Brian Thomas Jr. and he plays receiver. And Trevor Lawrence, like you said, he's never been bad. He certainly hasn't been the worst quarterback in the NFL since Tim Tebow, which you could argue for Richardson. So it's just an interesting thing. Blaiden, thanks for your time, man. I took up probably too much of it, but I appreciate your time as always, man.
Thank you for having me.
You got it, man. That is Blaiden Kirk. You can check him out on X at Blaiden. The podcast is called the Stay Hot Pod. They, like as I said, they did like an hour and 20 minutes on the AFC South. It's really good. There's a stat in there that is very bizarre. I'm not going to tell you what it is. Go and check out their stuff. As I said, they do a really, really good job covering the NFL. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, we're going to wrap up the show talking about this joint practice going on in Baltimore between the Colts and the Ravens.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Shows. They're getting ready to practice in Baltimore between the Colts and the Ravens. Hopefully we get a big day from Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones. I just want it to be apparent. I just want it to be obvious who the starting quarterback should be week one of the season after today. Like, I just want them to have a definite lean one way or the other, right? And I would prefer it if it came where, like, one guy had a normal day and the other guy was awesome, as opposed to one guy having a bad day and the other one having an average day. You know what I mean? So that's my hope. Hopefully we hear about Leatu Latu wreaking some havoc off the edge as well. Just a lot of things that are kind of in the balance, or not in the balance, but a lot of things that we just like don't 1,000% know for sure with the Colts this year, right? Like, we think that Anthony Richardson got better based on all of the, reports coming out of camp. We think that Leatu Latu is going to be better in his second year in the NFL. We think that, fill in the blank, right? Like, there's just all these questions that we don't quite have the answers to yet, and we're going to get them soon. Right? Practice today, joint practice against the Ravens, and of course, the first preseason game coming up on Thursday. That's going to do it here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way next. Armando Salguero at 1:30, Aaron Torres at 2:30. A lot of football conversation with college and NFL. We'll obviously have updates for you throughout the Colts and Ravens. I'll be back on the air tomorrow from 10 to noon. Check out the YouTube page, Indy Sports Ticket. Head over there and subscribe. I'll talk to you tomorrow starting at 10 a.m. Peace.